issues, all about housing policy. So I spend a lot of time working on housing policy at the federal level and the state level, in addition to practicing law. And oh, by the way, I am a part-time real estate investor in addition to being a full-time lawyer. Okay? So everything was going fantastic until the meeting at the White House went a little long. And then in the race in the cab to go back over to the lobbyist's office to grab my suitcase and briefcase, because you can't schlep them around Capitol Hill with you, then to go to the airport, going down a series of outside stairs in a very elegant area, right literally on the back side of the Cannon office building, I took a nasty tumble down some stairs and folded my right knee the wrong way. And that was about 4 o'clock, about 4 hours ago. So that would have been 1:30-ish, 1:45 local time. For you guys here, 2 o'clock, 2:45 Eastern time when I did that. Just let the adrenaline and the pain get me up, get my bag, get back in the cab, get me to the airport. I was the last person to make the flight to Birmingham. Everything's great, door closes, pilot comes on and says, folks, got good news and bad news. Bad news is there's thunderstorms coming, we may be sitting here a while. Good news is we're gonna eventually get out of here. I text Brian, and at this point in time, I don't know how well Brian believes me about the fact I need a knee brace, I may need crutches. I didn't think I needed a wheelchair. But when I got off the plane here in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama, walking was not an option. So people graciously got me in a wheelchair and then an angel picked me up at the airport.
It wasn't me.
Dude, I know it wasn't you. It wasn't your better half. But, yeah, she's an angel, okay? So, anyhow, we're here. So this is going to be different for all of us tonight. Because I normally start out by pounding out about 40 push-ups and running from the back of the room to the front of the room and get going. And is there anybody here that's ever seen me speak before? Okay, do I usually have a little bit of energy and movement when I'm talking and doing stuff? Okay, well, this is what you get tonight. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry to disappoint. You know, get a refund on the tickets if you need to. I don't know what else to tell you. But if it's okay with you, instead of stand and deliver, I'm going to sit and deliver. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get started. I got to begin with a thank you. Brian, thank you. Thank you for persistently pursuing this to get this nailed down months ago. Thank you for accommodating me regarding that last minute chance to be at the White House in Capitol Hill today. Thank you for sending the angel to the airport to get me. There's no way in the world I would have been able to rent a car or Uber and get here. Y'all's traffic is, y'all gotta fix that. You just do. I mean, you got too many nice cars on too few lanes, So anyhow, so thank you very much, and thank to each and every one of you for being here tonight. There's a lot of different things you could be doing tonight. It's nice outside. It's a Thursday, but thank you for being here. That brings me to my second point. I am not here because it's for me. I'm here for you. Brian and I talked about this, and we share a passion about doing this to where I'm going to deliver as much content as logically and as clearly as I can, and you all have to be completely comfortable with the fact that there's no way in the world I'm going to ask you to buy anything. Okay, are you comfortable with that? Great. Okay, but I do want you to listen to what I have to say, all right? So I usually start out with a presenter-attendee agreement. I'm here for you. You can take in as much information as you want out of this. If this presentation veers in a way that's like no longer meeting your needs or no longer appealing to you, hey, guess what? You got 2 feet, you got 2 legs, they're probably working better than mine. You can leave, okay? You're going to loop this out, but you can do that. I also believe in the law of motion. If you've got to get up, if you've got to move, if you've got to reposition yourself, do that, okay? And if I can roll this thing up just a little bit, I can then get my screen up to where I can see what's on there. I don't have to keep looking back over. Oh, thank you so much. If you just lift that screen up. Perfect. Now I can see what's up there and I don't have to keep looking over my shoulder.
Like lost the screen.
Oh, okay. Are we good? No, not quite. We got to turn it the other way.
There you go. There you
All right, awesome.
Talk about the law of motion.
There we go. Yeah, law of motion. We're testing it. Okay, made everybody's eyes move to try and do a little bit of that subconscious, make you pay attention a little bit more. Okay, so believe in the law of motion. If you got to move, you got to do something. Fine. Y'all know where the bathrooms are. I don't. I haven't been here long enough to find them yet. I will eventually need to. When that happens, please, I'm going to need to, okay? I will tell you, none of you guys are going to do this. Only Yankees do this. Nobody in the South has the lack of decency to do this. But I have literally, also in Las Vegas it's happened, literally walked into the men's room, been trying to take care of business, and people are asking me questions. Now, I know none of you guys here are going to do that, so that's great, okay? Put your phones on vibrate. I know you got them. Put them on vibrate. Just turn off the ringers. I'm not asking you to do anything other than that. Just put them on vibrate. And texting, typing, social media sharing is fantastic. Go ahead and do me the golden rule of social media. Say something nice about me first, and then say something negative. Then I can go ahead and like the nice stuff, and then come out and deny or block or delete the negative stuff. All right? And first goal here tonight is to seek to understand. Okay? First goal is to seek to understand. Try and just share some education. And this is a safe space. You guys can agree with me. You can disagree. You can ponder. And you can ask questions. Now, here's how we're going to do questions. At the end, we'll do questions. Not in the middle. My span of attention can no longer be interrupted, okay? I'm just getting too old to do this. Write them down, because I know they're going to be good, so write them down, and then we'll do questions at the end. Is that fair, Brian? I've shortened the presentation to allow for questions, okay? So now I have to do this for two reasons. Number one, because I'm a lawyer, and number two, because it's just good sense. This presentation is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to the subject matter covered. It's provided with the understanding that the presenter, that's me, is not engaged in rendering legal, accounting, or other professional advice at this time. If legal advice or other expert professional assistance is required, and it probably will be, the services of a competent professional person should be sought. Emphasis on the word competent, okay? If y'all had a series of migraine headaches, would you go to a podiatrist? If you're buying real estate, you don't go to a divorce lawyer, okay? You go to a real estate lawyer, you go to a business lawyer. All right, so some of you have already got the whiffum going on right now. You're asking that amazing question of, well, what's in it for me here? And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to share with you as much content as I can over the next hour, hour and a half. Do I get 3 hours or just an hour and a half tonight? How long do I get tonight? As long as I'm good, right? If I get boring, then I'll know. Okay, the tomatoes start flying great. So let me tell you this: this training that I'm going to share with you tonight cannot be comprehensive. What I'm going to share with you about asset protection and business structuring and operations and so on, there's no way in the world it can be comprehensive, okay? I can teach 3 and 4 day seminars on this stuff. But it will be based on practical, real-life investing, my own and hundreds of my clients, and my courtroom experiences of over 24 years as a trial court litigator. I have represented plaintiffs in a number of cases. I've changed the law 4 times via litigation in the state of Ohio on behalf of plaintiffs, people who got hurt. I've changed the law once via legislation in the state of Ohio regarding housing discrimination issues for landlords, protecting landlords, making the law a little fairer and more in compliance with federal fair housing law. I guess this is also the point in time when I will tell what else I've done, right? I'm changing the way wholesaling is regulated across America. I changed the way... How many of you have ever bought a house that went to foreclosure? Wow, that's it? Okay, then you guys wouldn't be too impressed with the fact that I changed the way Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae sell their REOs. So, okay, that's cool. So,
Still want to
brief,
hear it.
pardon me?
Still want to hear it.
That's old. I mean, I changed the way they do it because Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae were basically preventing investors from being able to buy them, fix them up, and resell them quickly. Because people like Brian and other of my clients, they've got systems in place. They can buy, fix, and resell in 60 days, not 180 days. And Freddie Mac was saying, oh, you got to hold it a minimum of 90 days. Now, we got that rule changed. I got it down to 30 days, 20% profit. You want to go beyond 30 days, then go to 90, and it's an unlimited profit. Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief overview of asset protection, then we're going to dive in a little deeper. A lot of people sell a lot of information regarding asset protection, and a lot of other people scare you to death regarding it, okay? There are many, many theories and ideas. Asset protection can be from the 0 level to the extreme paranoia level. I've seen them both. The best approach that I suggest is to use wise business practices in conjunction with solid asset protection techniques. All right? So is everybody ready to take notes? Yes. If you're ready to take notes, please raise your hand. Okay. Now, first thing I want you to write down is rule number 1 of asset protection. So everybody should write down at least the number 1, right? You have to have assets in order to protect them. Your reputation is your greatest asset. Do you get that? Your reputation is your greatest asset. You have to have assets in order to protect them, and your reputation is your greatest asset. So, best practices to avoid the greatest risk. I'm going to cover this from a high-level view, and then we're going to dive in a little bit deeper. The number 1 thing is the golden rule. How many of you are landlords? How many of you have tenants that are older, that you've had tenants longer than you've had some of your kids? Brian, how about you, man?
Actually, that is true, because I have a 1-year-old.
Okay. I've got a tenant that has rented from me for 20 plus years. And my oldest child was 24, and I remember negotiating to buy the building that he came with when my second child was being born. So he's still with me. The golden rule: treat other people like you want to be treated. I will tell you over and over again, a deal is not a deal if you crash your reputation while doing it. I don't care how much money you make. Real estate agents and brokers and realtors need to understand that. That is a cutthroat business because of how the market and inventory is right now. But folks, your reputation matters more, because I don't know about you, but I plan on being a real estate investor for another 20 years. So my reputation matters. Honesty is the only policy, and at points in this presentation, I'm going to share with you some stuff from a book out of the Bible called Proverbs. All right, so landlords. Let's go right to the meat of the matter. Landlords. Mold and lead-based paint are your 2 biggest fears. Flat out. If you own a house that was built pre-1978, it's got lead-based paint in it. The last thing you want to do is have a young kid as part of a family renting from you in a pre-78 home, and that young kid contracts lead poisoning. You are going to be presumed as a landlord to be guilty. So, you've got to do some things up front. Anybody want to write these tips down?
Yes.
Okay, semi-annual inspections of the property. When you go there to change the batteries and the smoke detectors, the beginning of the spring and the end of the fall, when you change time on your clocks, y'all do that down here?
Yep.
Daylight savings?
Yep.
Cut off one end of the blanket, sew it on the other end to make the blanket longer? But anyhow, do a walkthrough inspection of your rentals. Look for any sort of loose, chipping, peeling, or flaking paint. Address it then. Always tell your tenants, hey, is there anything going on? Please tell me, do you have any issues with any loose, chipping, peeling, flaking paint? Because if you have a file that shows, hey, I inspected the property every 6 months, I asked the tenant every other month how things are, here's a copy of the email, here's a copy of the postcard, or here's a copy of whatever I sent to the tenant, asking about that, when they then come back and say, oh, that landlord never took care of anything. Guess what? You've got proof of the opposite. And you have it in writing And if it's in writing, then it happened. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Okay? So there's some prevention issues and some proof at multiple levels. How many of you guys are entrepreneurial in spirit? Huh? What are the rest of you then? What are the rest of you? Okay. All right. Curious. Fair enough. The biggest risk that you face as a business entrepreneur, the biggest risk that you face as an adult exposing yourself to liability is your motor vehicle operation. Yvonne and I were talking about this on the way here. The number of people that are texting, driving, and crashing is skyrocketing. My kids are on me like all get out. Dad, don't you even touch that phone while you're driving. I don't care who texted you. I don't care what it's about. Don't touch the phone while you're driving. Because they care about what's going on. I've got some adult kids that they care. All right? So your ownership of a vehicle, the fact that you're operating a vehicle can put you into a jam. 1 second of inattention can cost a multi-million-dollar problem. You're not paying attention, you blow through a light, school bus is involved, school bus flips over. Man, I would not want to be in that situation. Okay? So I'll give you some practical tips on how to address that besides being a safe driver and making sure you don't text and drive. Make sure you don't do some other things. Okay? How many of you have employees? I have employees. I sign the front of checks on a frequent basis, made out to other people. Okay? They're wonderful people. Without them, we wouldn't be here today. Okay? So, employment issues. If you have employees, you have to watch out for on-the-job injury stuff. Make sure you carry workers' comp coverage. Make sure you carry the right insurance. Be very, very, very slow to hire and quick to terminate during a very good and long 90-day, 180 calendar day, 90 work day probationary period. Saved my bacon one time. Saved my bacon. In fact, a little over 10 years ago, had a lady start working for me. Just got some really bad vibes. I did, my wife did. And so at the end of the probationary period, I just said, hey, listen, this is not going to work out. And it's one of the really good things we did that. So be very slow to hire and keep a lean staff. We'll talk about employees versus independent contractors in a second. But I'm going to ask you this question. What is one of the worst things a real estate investor can ever hear?
You're guilty.
You're very close. You're very close. Getting sued? Maybe. Maybe. So I'll share with you what I think it is. Will the defendant please rise? And let me explain what I mean by this. You've not just been sued. You've been involved in litigation that is probably now drug on for 3+ years. And you're involved in one of those cases that represents that 1% of all civil lawsuits that didn't settle. Only 1% of all the lawsuits that are filed in this country actually go to trial. And that phrase is uttered at the end of the trial just before the jury comes in. So you're in a mess, okay? It's one of the worst things you could hear. I've been there with clients in that situation through no fault of their own because of other unscrupulous business partners and family members. They got sued. So it's a mess. So another area of asset protection is political engagement by RIAs. You run a RIA, right, Brian? Right?
Maybe.
Maybe. So have you? How often do you reach out to any of your local elected officials?
Often, actually.
Good. Your member of Congress was on my flight today. Sitting in the back. And oh, by the way, Frank Luntz, the pollster that you often see on Fox News, was sitting right behind me. I didn't care for what he said at the end when he looked at the member of Congress going by and says, enjoy the majority while you got it. Because Frank apparently thinks differently than I do about this fall's midterms. But I'm going to tell you right now, For decades, real estate investors have been what's been on the table getting carved up at the local level, at the state level, at the county level, and at the federal level. Have you ever heard of licensing to become a landlord and property inspections of landlord properties?
Yes.
Do you realize how unconstitutional that is? Do you realize how discriminatory that idea is? It's implying that people that rent are a different class of people than people who own their home. That's a disparate, ridiculous argument. There's no rational basis for it. And when we raise that argument in the state of Ohio, the federal court says, you're right, and threw the law out. Okay? The municipality was too chicken to take it up to the Court of Appeals. I wish they would have, because we would have won that one there, and it would have been a lot more fun. But anyhow, because now all we got is a trial court decision rather than a Court of Appeals decision saying it's discriminatory. It also violates the unreasonable search and seizure of the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. So, and what really grinds me, I'm just going to, dude, I hope I don't step on any toes when I say this, but what really grinds me is a revenue collection mechanism used by social do-gooders that ends up discriminating against minorities. And I despise it for those reasons. All right, so how many of you are concerned about privacy?
Más o menos.
Okay. I see people that have concern about privacy. They get all concerned about who knows what I've got, and they layer stuff with trusts and all sorts of things. The New York Times had an article last week about how LLCs are now being used to make property ownership anonymous. That's simply because you don't know what you're looking for. It's still easy to figure it out in some states. Alabama's LLC law, I'll get into that in a little bit. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I use title holding trusts for my long-term holds. We'll get into that. Now, I'm gonna just give you something else, and if you don't write anything else down tonight, aside from rule number 1, anybody want to read rule number 1 back to me?
Have an asset.
Have assets to protect.
And the second half of that is?
Your reputation is your greatest asset.
There you go. Gold stars. Thank you. Well done. Second thing, if you don't remember anything else, please remember this. Dollar for dollar, good liability insurance, including umbrella policies, are the best asset protection technique out there. Somebody's going to say to you, well, Jeff, I heard that if you use a Nevada LLC managed by a Wyoming C Corp, you can scoff at all the lawsuits that are out there. And I'm like, okay, let me ask you this. Who taught you that? How many trials have they ever done? How many times have they represented severely injured people and changed the law in their respective state on behalf of severely injured people? Just kind of curious. Haven't ever gotten an answer back. But let me tell you how trial lawyers think. Are there any other lawyers in the room? Come on, I can't be the only one. I can't see, I'm sitting down. Okay, awesome, great. Now if I'm wrong, you correct me, okay? But trial lawyers think about one thing. How to get the money. They want the money. Are the damages good enough that I can collect a big check? See how I said that? So they can collect a big check. Where's that check coming from? Insurance company. Plaintiff's attorneys become fixated on that umbrella policy with $1 million of coverage and stop paying attention to whatever else Brian owns. Because they want that money. They want that $1 million of insurance money. Why? Because they know if they can get that $1 million for their client, they can take 40% of it, and they might be able to get a new Beamer, buy a better boat, and maybe go on vacation. So they become fixated on that. So an umbrella policy should be able to take you to a minimum of $1 million. Okay? So you need to have insurance that covers you from an operational basis, a premises basis, and you need to make sure all of your tenants have renter's insurance. And if you yourself don't own a home and you're renting, please make sure that you have renter's insurance. I will tell you a true story. my law firm rents the space from another entity. Now, I know that other entity pretty well because that's me and another entity. Okay? So I have two insurance policies. The building has its own insurance policy, and then the tenant, my law firm, had its own insurance policy on its contents and operations and so on. And so when I had a disastrous event take place on December 14th of last year, when a frozen pipe broke and water cascaded all down into my office from the unit above, causing right now a little over $100,000 in damages, I had two different insurance policies to collect on. One of them covers the damage to the building and the structure. The other one covered the damage to my business operations, the contents of my business, extra rent that I had to pay by going and renting somewhere else to operate and work from for the last 6 months. We're still there. So it was a really nice thing to have that renter's insurance. Okay? The best part about it was it covered, and this is something you want to write down if you own a business. You need to make sure you have a business coverage that also includes restoration of lost records and important documents. My insurance company had to pay $2,000 for some of the best data recovery people in America to get back the entire contents of my hard drive off of my laptop that had 100 gallons of water go through it. And they got it all back. And it cost $2,000, and the insurance company paid for it. And I am thrilled for, number one, I didn't have to pay for it. Number two, I'm thrilled I got it all back. Because otherwise you wouldn't be seeing most of this PowerPoint. Because that PowerPoint, the base of it was in what was lost and then recovered. Okay, legal protections in the form of entities. Your code language matters. Just out of curiosity, how many of you own an LLC, registered to do business in the state of Alabama? There, now I'm getting people to raise their hands. Awesome. How many of you have taken a look at Alabama LLC law? I'm down to 3 hands. Okay, that's good. 4 hands. How many of you know that in, I think it was 2014, your state legislature did a major rewrite and overhaul of your LLC laws? And effective 2017, all LLCs, whether they were created before or after 2014, are covered by that law? Anybody else know that? Okay. Would you like me to tell you 2 of the things that are in your LLC law that I found to be very interesting? Yeah, this folks, what I'm going to tell you right now is worth the price of admission. Brian, how much did you charge them to get in here?
Should I charge more?
Well, I want to know what the price of admission was so I can make sure it's worth that.
That's free, man.
Oh, well then this is way worth that. Okay. Well, you know, sometimes the advice is free. It depends on what you do with it. Okay. So you got 2 things that stood out to me. Number one, for some reason, your legislatures think that oral agreements can be used to interpret LLCs. So let's give an example. I'm going to just pick 2 names, Fred and Jack. I hope if you're in the room and your name's Fred or Jack, I don't know that, and I'm not trying to pick on you. But Fred and Jack decide that they're going to form an LLC and they're going to go do some deals together. They're going to find some cheap houses, they're going to do a lipstick and paint job to them, and then they're going to try and sell them and make a lot of money, okay? Because they watched Armando Montalongo and they think he's just the bomb, and away they go. I did that with a straight face, too. That was pretty good. Dude, you got to play along with me just a little bit better. Okay. So anyhow, they never get around to adopting a formal, written operating agreement. And so whatever they talk about, however they act, however they just generally let each other do business with each other, that becomes your operating agreement. It's kind of like playing tennis with no nets and no lines. It's whatever. So if you have an LLC in the state of Alabama, please make sure that you have a written, fully executed operating agreement that says this is the entire agreement, nothing else outside of these pages controls and governs how this LLC is owned, operated, and will be operated in the future, and divided and sold and everything else. Okay? Please make sure you have that. If you don't have that, you need to get that. Okay? Now, when we start talking about LLCs, a lot of people get all geeky and like, oh no, that's really, you can do this with an LLC, you can do that with an LLC, and then if you get sued, then you don't have to pay the bill because you get a charging order against you, you kind of ignore the charging order, blah, 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 blah. Well, I got news for you. Okay? A lot of people don't understand that, but Alabama did get this right. Unlike the state of Florida. Florida screwed this up completely. Alabama got this right, that a charging order is the exclusive remedy against an LLC or against a member of an LLC for a debt incurred by that member. So, for example, if Fred is driving his car, texting to his kids, and accidentally waffles one of the prominent trial lawyers in Birmingham in the crosswalk, and that prominent trial lawyer's third trophy wife decides to sue Fred.
That's good.
Okay, at least somebody's liking me, okay? At least somebody's liking me. Then, if Fred doesn't have enough insurance, then the trophy wife number 3 is going to be like, well, I want Fred's company. And Jack's going to be like, oh, no, I don't want to lose my company because trophy wife number 3, I don't like you as much as I like Fred. I want to be in business with Fred, not you. You don't know anything about buying houses. Fred does. Well, the good news is for Joel, Jack, and Fred that Alabama law says that trophy wife only has the right to receive whatever profits that LLC would distribute to Fred. That's it. She can only stand in Fred's shoes to say, give me money, when the LLC decides to pay it out. There's the operative language, when the LLC decides to pay it out. Okay? Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a co-founder in an LLC that we are a $15 million a year business. We are a household name in the real estate investing space. And I have not gotten a dime of distributions in 12 years from that company, since we founded it 12 years ago. Not gotten a dime. I get a tax bill every year. I pay taxes on all the profits we make that we always reinvest back into the business. So can you imagine being trophy wife number 3, and you think you're going to get money, but Fred and Jack decide to hang on to it? But instead you get this K-1 that says you owe the IRS taxes on a couple $100,000? And my man said to settle a little earlier. You never know, okay? So what I'm sharing with you is probably the reality, but no one's been dumb enough in the last 20 years to really fully litigate it. So I just know how it works from a tax code perspective and from a business planning perspective, but I haven't seen it because no one's been dumb enough to litigate it up. What we did see happen in the state of Florida is this information marketer blatantly violated federal rules, and the Federal Trade Commission came after him. And he basically thumbed his nose at the FTC and says, well, I've got a single member LLC and all the money's in there and you can't get anything from it. Well, the Federal Trade Commission went to the Florida Supreme Court and said, we want the money in that LLC to pay these fines. And the Florida Supreme Court hemmed and hawed and looked at their statute and said, you know what? Legislature created multiple member LLCs first, and they were very specific about charging order protection. But then a few years later, they created single member LLCs, like you have, Mr. Olmstead, and they didn't include that same language in there. So it must have not meant to protect it because they didn't include it. So we're going to let the FTC have your money. So in Florida, a single member LLC is not too good. Okay, multiple member LLC is pretty much the only way to go. You don't have that problem here in Alabama, so don't lose sleep over that, okay? So let's go back and talk about insurance. Remember, what did I say about insurance? I need someone other than my Gold Star pupils over here, though. What did I say about insurance? Second thing I told you had to write down. Pardon me?
Best asset protection.
Pardon me?
Best asset.
Dollar for dollar, it's the best asset protection out there. Yes. So how do you get the best asset protection for the best dollars? That's what we're going to talk about now. Number one, interview several independent agents. An independent agent is an agent that can write for more than one carrier. Okay? I got a dear friend, client, he's totally captive to State Farm. I got another good friend, he's totally captive to American Family. They don't get upset when I say this, they know. Okay? Second thing is, if you still have your home used as a business address, and some of you have, because I can go find your LLC organizational paperwork saying that you used your home address. Shame on you for doing that. Should have known better, but you didn't. That's okay. Get a home-based business rider added immediately, like tomorrow morning before 12 noon. Call your agent tomorrow morning and go, hey, I just found out that I need to add a home-based business rider to my existing homeowner's policy. Can you take care of that right now? What you just said to the agent is, can you charge me more money? Of course, what are they going to say? Absolutely. They may need a couple more pieces of information, but you're rocking and rolling. Represented a young couple that failed to do that. And it wasn't a problem until their dog took a bite out of the face of one of the kids that they were babysitting in exchange for money. Wasn't a friend, wasn't a freebie. They were doing it to make money, and so there was no coverage because they didn't have a home-based business rider. Well, fortunately, we got that case resolved. Umbrella liability policy. Let me tell you another great thing about umbrella liability policies. They are often written and issued by a different insurance company than has your underlying base policy on your home and on your car. Okay? Now, you're going to say, well, whoop-de-doo about that, Jeff. Whoop-de-doo. Well, let me tell you why that's exciting. It's because if you get sued and they come after you for more than your basic coverage at your home or your auto policy, then your umbrella carrier kicks in and they go hire a different set of lawyers than the first company hires. And so now you've got two sets of lawyers from two different good law firms representing you, and you're not paying the bill because you've been paying your insurance premiums. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I think that's kind of sexy. Okay? I mean, having two sets of smart lawyers representing me simply because I was smart enough to buy the right insurance? Yeah, baby, I like that. Okay? So, get a general business liability policy. Get a general business liability policy. If you're in business, when you decide to get into the real estate business, for those of you that are thinking and checking stuff out, okay? If you're thinking kind of sort of that maybe someday you'll get around to fixing to do some real estate investing, you don't quite need that policy yet, but when you decide that you are a real estate investor, then you better get it. You better get that general business liability policy, okay? One of the companies that I like, this is not an endorsement, this is a company I've dealt with and I've used them every now and then, is a company called Auto Owners. They've done a pretty decent job. You can get them through an independent agent, but go back to the independent agent like I have at the top of the screen. Interview several independent agents. How many independent agents?
Several.
How many is that?
5 to 7.
More than 2 or 3, right? It's more than 3. Okay. Oh, let me give you another nugget. This might seem obvious, but I can tell you there's some people that really need to hear this. Improve and maintain your properties. If you're a landlord and the tenant tells you something is broken, fix it. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you how I fix something when it breaks at my property. Okay? I pull out my smartphone, I go over into my texting capabilities, and I start searching for which one of my handymen is closest to that particular property, and I pull up their name and number, and I tell them what the problem is, and I send the text. And then a little bit later, I get out a check, and I sign their name, sign my name on a check to make payable to them. And I look at the pictures to prove it got done. That's how I fix stuff, okay? Because I'm kind of lazy, okay? Kind of lazy. I used to fix it all myself, and then I found there were better uses of my time, okay?
Gotta watch your ROI.
Pardon me?
Gotta watch your ROI.
You have to watch your ROI, and I'll tell you what, fixing problems, fixing plumbing is not the most profitable use of my time. Okay, so I really love to talk about umbrella liability policy because it does so many different things for you. It can cover your primary residence. It can cover you on your automobile ownership and operation. Think about this. You've got basic policy requirements in the state of Alabama, and you've got, say, $500,000 coverage of liability coverage on your car and on your home. Somebody slips and falls, you get in a wreck, it's $500,000 coverage you got available. Then you get an umbrella that takes it from $500,000 up to a full $1 million. Or it may take it $1 million in addition, so you got 1.5 in coverage. Here's where it gets really interesting. And I litigated a case like this, and so I understand it very well. A highly paid sales executive was involved in a car wreck, and the person who was at fault only had $100,000 of coverage. My client had $1 million umbrella policy through State Farm. And you're going to be like, well, Jeff, what's that mean? Well, my client hit his head 3 times in 2 seconds inside that car wreck. And he went from being able to make $300,000 a year to only be able to make about $40,000 a year. Now that's what I call a loss of income.
Yep, 360-degree concussion.
That's a lot of money for closed head injury. And because he got $100,000 from the tortfeasor, the person who hit him, he was then eligible to get up to $900,000 from his umbrella policy from State Farm. Now they fought tooth and nail and finally paid him $875. Okay? But it worked out. It gave them enough breathing time so that his wife, who was an RN, could go back to school and become a PA, triple her income, and so then they could keep on going. And also gave him enough money to pay down on his house and refinance it so they could lower their payment to keep their house and be able to not have to move their kids out of high school and then you were otherwise going to have to downsize. So that umbrella policy basically saved that family right there. And he wasn't even at fault. It wasn't his fault that somebody crossed the line and hit him and got him into a wreck where he hit his head 3 times in 2 seconds. Okay? I've touched on this earlier, business conduct. Integrity is essential. So that's the third thing I want you to write down. Integrity is essential. Okay? Over and over and over, one of my favorite authors, Solomon, in the book of Proverbs, talks about how the person who is in a hurry to get rich quick troubles his own house. The person who lives a righteous life and acts with integrity eventually triumphs and wins. Now, if this dude, who was told by historians to be the richest man and the smartest man in the world, says that, then I'm going to buy it and believe it because I've seen it bear out over and over again. The next thing about your business conduct is please have the right paperwork. Okay? I'm working on a case right now where I've got this really smart investor who doesn't have the paperwork documenting the fact that he was leasing this house with an option to buy and then subleasing it to somebody else. And I've asked him, where's the lease? Where's the copy of the option? Where is it? And I'll get it to you. Dude, you don't understand. You're being investigated for whether or not you have an interest in the house. If you don't have a fully executed lease, if you don't have a fully executed option that I really wish you would have recorded on public record, you can't prove you've got an interest in the house. Oh, I'll get it, Jeff, I'll get it. Okay, we'll see. Hey, dude, it's only your neck in the noose, not mine. You know? Slow down and do the deal the right way. Document it up the right way. This is the number one Achilles heel that I see in real estate investors. The number one Achilles heel. Why? Because a lot of real estate investors are the fire ready aim crowd. Anybody ever met anybody like that before? Fire ready aim? Or how about fire aim ready? Some of you are laughing. The rest of you are like, well, you know, I'm not sure I like this guy. He talks like a Yankee, he can't stand up, he's like kind of boring, you know? Okay, so anyhow, proper documentation. Slow down and get it right, because I'm going to share with you a very, very important nugget that a very, very wise man shared with me. And if you write this down, you'll be glad you did. Real estate investing is a marathon run by thinking people. It is a thinking person's business. Real estate investing is a thinking person's business. It is a marathon. This is not something that, oh, I'm going to try it for 90 days and I'm going to see if I like it. And if I make enough money like the guru on the internet says that I will, well, then I'll stay with it. No. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be straight up with you. Real estate investing will test the very essence of your soul. It will test the very essence of your soul. It will determine what kind of character you have. But at the same time, if you go look at the books written by the late Tom Stanley, the economist out of Atlanta, Georgia, The Millionaire Next Door and The Millionaire Mind, you go check out the appendixes of those books. The most frequently occurring occupation of millionaires in America, when they wrote the book, had something to do with real estate investing. And now that my friend Chris Hogan is writing another book on millionaires, and I had a chance to be interviewed by him and talk to him about it, I can guarantee you real estate investors are going to be high up on that list as well. Okay? That's a book coming out pretty soon by Chris Hogan. I'm looking forward to it coming out. They've interviewed over 10,000. They've interviewed over 10,000 millionaires in the United States of America. I will tell you this that I found to be very shocking, but not too shocking. 2 of the 5 most common occupations that millionaires in the United States of America have right now: teachers and lawyers. Why? Because y'all think. You know what occupation was not in that list? Doctors. I'm sorry. Doctors, unfortunately, don't make what they used to, and they get marketed to aggressively for everything. And way too many of them are money is easy to make, I'm going to spend it now and worry about it later crowd. Okay? Love doctors. I got to go see one tomorrow for obvious reasons. And I'm on a first-name basis with at least 3 different orthopedists, and I'm trying to figure out which one I can get in to see first. You know, but anyhow.
Hopefully they can think.
Oh, they're good at what they do. It's just outside of medicine, they're not too good at it, you know? That's the scary part. All right. So having the right paperwork, if you haven't understood me talking about the importance of having the right paperwork, you might be beginning to figure it out right now, helps you maintain privacy and avoid litigation. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay. So it also helps you avoid the loss of assets. And here's another one. It helps you avoid unnecessary taxation. There is no greater threat to a real estate investor's net worth than unnecessary taxation. You can quote me on that one, Brian. Okay? You can quote me on that one. Now I'm going to share with you a quote from a dear friend of mine by the name of Reggie. Reggie Lau. He hangs out with a crowd of really smart people that I'm privileged to be part of. And Reggie, 2 weeks ago, as we were at a mastermind, looked at me and he said, "Paying taxes is a sign of lack of imagination." You get that? Think about that.
That's called Trump.
There is no other industry in this country besides real estate, above real estate investing, that allows you to strategically plan your taxes. And if you're paying too much in taxes, it's because you lack enough imagination. Okay? One of the favorite things I love to do with clients, and I say I love to do this with clients, not for, but with them, is structure deals where they pay little or no taxes on those profits and on the income. That's one of my most enjoyable things to do. I go to sleep at night dreaming of ways of playing by the IRS's rules and winning. Okay? Yeah, I know. Some of you are like, what a nerd. Guilty. Okay.
But you like it.
I love it, yeah. All right. How many of you have ever hired someone to do a job for you? How many of you think you're going to hire someone to do a job for you when you buy a house to fix up and resell? How many of you have ever heard a phrase called a scope of work agreement? They must be used. The more detail, the better. Now, I know it's no fun. I know you're tired. I know that contractors change their mind 3 times about different things they're going to do. It's your job. It's your project. It's your house. It's your money. You get it in writing. You make sure that you know that they are an independent contractor. Where's their business license? Where's their proof of liability insurance? Where is their workers' comp coverage?
Now are they subcontracting?
Well, are they subbing out to somebody else? Yes. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I know what's going on in this town, and I'm not judging you all for it. But some of you are going to say, Jeff, I can't afford to hire contractors that have all that paperwork. Because I can go get some Amigos at Lowe's or Home Depot or somewhere else, and they can do a better job faster and cheaper. And I'm going to go, you're taking a risk. You're taking a risk. It's your business. You get to run it how you see fit. And trust me, if you can, I can tell you stories where that has worked out great, and I can tell you stories where it's not worked out great. Okay? But it's important to have a scope of work agreement because it helps limit your liability. It also helps limit your taxes because you will pay less in taxes if they're an independent contractor than if they're an employee. Okay? It also, and this is the really important part, it helps you set in writing a payment schedule. Do I need to talk about this?
Yes.
Or do you all understand how some contractors are? That it gets to be about 1:30 on Friday afternoon and you haven't heard from them all week and now they're blowing your phone up. Man, it's Friday. We got a bunch of work done. We need to get paid. Man, when can I come by and get a check? It's Friday. I got to pay my guys. I got rent due. Got to get groceries. Got to feed my babies. Well, that's when you go back to the payment schedule and you go, listen, we agreed on paying you in 4 draws. And each one of these draws required this, and this to be done. So I can come over and inspect the property, and if it's all done, then I can cut you a check. Do you want me to come over and inspect to see if that's all done? Well, you with me? Ever been there? I've been there. Man, charity starts at home. Pay them when you agreed to, and don't withhold it. Don't slow pay them when they've done it. Don't you dare slow pay it, but don't you dare pay them ahead either. Okay? Don't you dare. All right. So, employee versus independent contractor. One of the big questions that we're seeing litigated, I haven't seen the answer yet, is whether Uber drivers are employees or independent contractors. I think they're independent contractors because they can turn that app on whenever they want to. Okay? So, who controls what that person is doing? Who controls where they're doing it? Who determines who's using what equipment and whose equipment? Are they being managed by how they do the project, or are they being managed on how they get the result done? Employees are managed as they do the project. Independent contractors are paid based upon the result. If they're paid by the hour, it screams employee. If they're paid upon a finished, completed job, it says independent contractor. If they use their own equipment, independent contractor. If they're using your tools, your truck, your computer, that screams employee. If they're working from your office, employee. If they're working from their home office that they're taking as the deduction on their tax return, independent contractor. You see how I'm going? You getting ideas? Okay. Ultimately, the big question is this. Can they go broke or get rich? Because if they can either go broke based on their own lack of initiative or get rich based upon their skills and initiative, they are an independent contractor.
Is it official?
Pardon me?
Is it official definition?
That's not the official definition, but that's a summary of what the IRS says in their final analysis. You know, litigated this a number of times, and it really comes down to how much control do they have and can they grow their business or not. Are you their only customer, employee? Are they working 3 or 4 other jobs with 3 or 4 other customers? Independent contractor, okay? All right, so let's go back and do this. Just agreeing. I'm going to say this because I know some of you need to hear this. It is killing me not to be able to move around. I'm sorry, folks. It is killing me.
Well, you can wave your arms.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, makes the microphone bounce on my shirt collar, okay? All right, so it's just killing me not being able to move around here. You'd have told me that I was going to be doing a presentation from a wheelchair. Oh.
Now you know never to do it that way again.
Hey, I feel for you, man.
Yeah, I just.
Take a break if you need one.
No, it's not that I'm hurting or anything. It's I'm so used to moving around.
Right.
You know, I'm so used to, by now I'd be 3/4 of the way down the aisle and be able to read name tags and have names to pick on people, okay? Well, it's a little tight, so we'll pass on that. But you know, I got to tell you, the hotel staff here met me at the door. And within 30 seconds, they had a wheelchair for me. So fantastic people here. I mean, kindness shown to me by American Airlines, and I don't normally fly American. And the people at Reagan, and people here in Birmingham and here at the hotel. And clearly, Brian's Angel, Yvonne, wow. I'm so grateful for it. All right, so let's get into this. How many of you own any investment property? Is that it? Okay, we're going to do something a little different, okay? If I can't stand up, you guys have to. If you own investment property, please stand up. Awesome. Excellent. Please go ahead and you can have a seat. This is the best I can do for now. Okay. All right. So, should you hold title to your investment properties in your own name? You may need to on rare occasions, such as if you're going to borrow money from an institutional lender. They may require it be in your own name. Okay? So my recommendation is rarely, if ever. Now, if you're like me, and you will never, ever, ever borrow money from a bank, it's not a problem. Because I'll never borrow money from a bank.
Why?
Why? You ever read their loan docs? Okay, I'm gonna be straight at you, okay?
He said they read it.
I have.
I read everything.
There's just no way. Proverbs 22:7. Solomon wrote that the borrower is slave to the lender.
Right.
Okay? Now, when I understand that, there's two positions there. One of them is pretty good to be in, and the other one is not so good. So I lend money, and I'll tell you, my loan docs are egregious. I can't believe people borrow money from me and sign those docs. You know where I got those docs from? Banks. Okay? So that really nice banking representative at that local office near where you live harmlessly and innocently gets you to sign all these horrible loan docs. She has no clue what's in there. He has no clue what's in there. But I've read them. I've watched those terms be used to crush people. Businesses that are struggling, I've seen how banks will just abuse those businesses under the terms of those loan docs. And there's no way in the world I will ever do that. Okay. Second question is, should you hold title to property in the name of a, quote, partnership, unquote, where you and other investors pooled resources to buy and manage the property? My good friend John Heyer will be flopping his arms around going, danger, Will Robinson, danger, danger. Because that's just danger all over the place. Number one, a verbal partnership is a terrible thing. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Pooling resources, absent a PPM, private placement memorandum, is a securities violation in motion. Don't do it. Okay? That's where you pool resources together. It's different than lending. Okay? So I say never on that one. Almost never. Never. You know, danger. Holding title to the property in the name of a limited liability company or a family limited partnership. That's a really good idea. And that is probably enough for most people. If it's a good LLC with a good operating agreement that you've signed after you read it and understood it, and you've properly set up the LLC, operating agreement, joint action of managers and members, tax ID number, bank account, title the asset in the LLC, all of the money that comes in goes into the bank account owned by the LLC. You don't spend the money out of that LLC account except for two things, stuff related to the property and profit distributions back to the owners. Everything's good. Okay? Everything's good. You break one of those rules and things start to go off the rails. Some people, though, I'd say about 25% of the people that I work with, they're a little more paranoid. And they're like, oh, Jeff, I don't want my competition to know how much I own. I don't want anybody to know how much I really have. I'm like, okay, so here's what we'll do then. Why don't you take title to that real estate in a title holding trust that's owned by an LLC and have that LLC owned by a master multiple member LLC. And about that point in time, their eyes do what y'all's just did. Glaze over. Except this one lady, she leaned forward because now I'm finally starting to get interesting to her. I'm talking about you, right back through there. Okay, so we're going to go into that in a lot more detail, okay? All right, so let's talk about, before I go into all of the bewildering choices, combinations, and arrangements, let's focus on the key things that we need to know and do. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You have to have an intention and a goal. Okay? How many of you have a written goal when it comes to your real estate investing business? Stand up if you do. Okay? Go ahead and have a seat. Just out of curiosity, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but if you're still kind of sort of thinking about maybe getting started as an investor and you've not yet bought an investment property yet, you've not yet done your first deal, would you go ahead and stand up, please? Awesome. Awesome. Great. Congratulations. Now, for those of you that just sat down, have you learned anything yet? Okay, good. For those of you that stood up a little bit earlier, have you learned anything yet?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like me to keep going?
Yes.
Okay. With your permission, I'll continue to do that. So there's three intentions or goals And I'm not using the words interchangeably, but I'm using them specifically for different reasons, okay? Because it's more important to have an intention than a goal. Because a goal can get you fixated on the wrong thing. My intention is to become financially free. My intention is to have enough income that shows up in my mailbox that I don't have to go to work if I don't want to. And I'm going to tell you right now, when that moment happened a while back, that was a very fun moment. But you know what I did as a result of it? Went back to work. Why? Because I like doing what I do, okay? So, all right. So our first goal or intention is to decrease taxes. How many of you like paying real estate? How many of you like paying taxes? I'm confused. I'm confused. A lot of us like the social programs that are out there, right? Some of us do, right? How many of you like to drive on a smooth road? Okay. How many of you like to have the stoplights work? Okay. How many of you like to be able to have airplanes take off and land at the airport? Your tax dollars make some of that happen, okay? So you got to be able to pay the right amount of taxes, okay? Discouraging lawsuits. You cannot prevent lawsuits from happening because anybody with a few $100s and a word processor can file a lawsuit against anybody, okay? It's just going to happen. And you need to learn how to use insurance wisely. So those are the 3 goals that we're going to get into a little bit deeper, okay? Have you kind of noticed I gave you some general principles at a high altitude? And then as we come back around, we're at a little bit lower altitude. And now we're going to get down there where we're going to be just a little bit over the treetops to where we can start determining what types of trees are underneath us. Okay. So we're going to go there. So what is an entity? An entity is a business organized according to state law. Alabama has those laws that set up that allow you to organize different kinds of entities to limit the liabilities of the owners. Is that a pretty cool thing? Where your legislature got together and said, hey, we want the people in our state who want to take the risk of owning a business, we want to be able to let them know that they can limit some of their potential liability if something goes wrong. That's a great thing. Your state did a good job on that. Florida did not. California does not. A few other states. New York State stinks, too, by the way. Anyhow. Entities can be corporations, limited liability companies, or limited partnerships. All of them provide much greater asset protection when compared to a sole proprietorship or a general partnership. Okay? All of them do a much better job than a sole proprietorship or a general partnership. So we've got some choices that are out there. We've had corporations around for hundreds of years in this country, and hundreds of years when we go back and use our roots from European law, particularly England, okay? So they have established precedent. They have a known amount of a liability shield. They have very tight and rigid ownership rules and profit distribution rules. And they require more record keeping. C Corps and Sub S's. Now, how many of you are aware that we had a major tax reform act done in December of last year? How many of you realize that C corporations still aren't better than S corps, even though they took the tax rate down to 21%? And by the way, do you want to know why we're at 21 instead of 20?
Yes.
Sure. Let's see, it was either October or November last year when I was back on Capitol Hill working on another issue. One of the members of Congress, can't remember who it was, looked at me in a little private meeting and he said, we're going to go from 20 to 21 because Marco Rubio out of Florida says that if it doesn't go to 21 and they get that extra money for him to have it to spend on one of his pet projects, he won't vote for the bill and then we can't get it to the Senate. That's how sausage is made in this country. Okay? Y'all got some senators, you got 2 of them from this state. Okay? Those 2, along with 98 other ones, are the biggest impediment to things happening in this country. And sometimes that is a fantastic thing. And sometimes that is a terrible thing. Okay? It's just the way it is. Okay? LLCs. Now, SM stands for single member. Single member means one owner. Multiple member, MM, means two or more owners. Okay? Limited liability companies are newer and evolving. It seems like it wasn't that long ago that I was in law school, but when I was in law school, they didn't teach a thing about limited liability companies because they didn't yet exist in this country. It's a little bit uncertain at times. There's some scary stuff coming out of a couple of states that has me concerned. Much more flexible rules regarding ownership and operation and so on. And very creative profit distribution opportunities with a well-written operating agreement. And they require less formal business record keeping. You still have to do as much bookkeeping on your money as before, but you don't have to have the same degree of annual meetings, minutes of the meeting, waiver of notice of the meeting, and all that other stuff. Yeah, it's good if you have it. In some states, kind of like cut you slack if you don't have it. I didn't check Alabama on that, but anyhow, it's still a good idea to have it. All right, so what is an S corporation? An S corporation is a corporation that is elected to be taxed as a flow-through entity, which means that that entity does not in and of itself pay taxes. Instead, the tax bill gets moved down to the owners based upon the percentage of the entity that each owner owns or controls. Okay? So if I take these four people right here in front of me, and I give them where they four own an S corporation, 10%, 40%, 10%, 40%, that added up to 100, then the tax bill would be 40% to you, 40% to you, 10% to you, 10% to you. And that's how the profits would also be distributed, okay? Now, if you're a married couple, then guess what? It still rolls together if you file a married filing jointly tax return, okay? So, unless you live in one of those weird community property states, and then you've got to make some special elections, okay? So, anybody here live in Wisconsin? California? You live in those states? No, there's a difference between living there. Okay, you did live there, but you got smart and moved out? Way to go, man. Yeah, I'm not sure why. I've got clients that do business in San Diego, and I just shake my head as to why they do business in San Diego. I just shake my head. I can't understand it. All right. So here's a grid. For those of you that think differently than just words, I'm going to put a couple pictures up on the screen, okay? Verbal partnerships can easily be pierced and you can lose your assets. Sole proprietorships can be easily pierced and you can lose your assets. Written partnerships easily pierce, lose your assets because your partner can bind you to debt and liability, which is not a cool thing. Instead, what we like to do is avoid those, and we want to build walls of protection around our assets. Okay? And I use C Corps on a rare occasion, sub-S Corps a lot, single member LLCs a lot, multiple member LLCs a lot, limited partnerships very rarely anymore, very rarely, because the multiple member LLCs are probably just easier to set up, operate, and do than limited partnerships. But one of the things that I love to do is I love to combine the features of a sub-S corporation with the features of an LLC. That is where you can get the best of both of those worlds. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Okay? An S election allows the shareholders to be taxed only at the individual level based upon what they own of the corporation, instead of at both the corporate and individual levels, thus avoiding the double taxation like the C corporation. C corporation pays tax at 20% on its profits, and then the dividend distributions back to its shareholders are taxed again as dividend income by every shareholder. So there's the double taxation. Okay? S corporations provide good liability protection and are a good business for many tax situations and many business situations. If you're flipping houses, if you're buying, fixing, and reselling in less than a year on a piece of real estate, if you're assigning contracts, if you're wholesaling, if you are landscaping, well, you guys don't snowplow down here. Landscaping, lawn mowing, plumbing, HVAC, anything like that where you're generating active earned income, S corporations are a great choice. A great choice. Particularly if you want to go ahead and marry them up with a limited liability company that elects sub-S tax status, you can get the best of both worlds. Some of you have a C corporation. I know that because some of you have told me that. A C corporation is taxed at 2 levels. The corporation pays tax on the corporate profits. Then the money that's left over, the corporation can distribute those profits to the shareholders and it's taxed again. Now, I will go on a bunny trail. Because in a room this size with this many attentive, kind, wonderful people, and I'm saying that seriously and earnestly, I really appreciate your kindness and your attentiveness and the fact that you're just taking it in. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes. There are a couple of situations where a C corporation may be a very good idea. How many of you realize that healthcare is expensive? How many of you realize that long-term illnesses are really expensive? How many of you have realized that C corporations provide a way to pay for long-term illnesses with pre-tax dollars that the IRS never got to? Does that interest anybody? If you've got a family member, whether they're a young child with a disability, a teenager or adolescent with a problem, an older parent with need for long-term nursing care, and they're dependent on you, you can structure to where your C corporation takes the money it makes and pursuant to the terms of a medical expense reimbursement plan, pays you as an employee a benefit saying, hey, you're such a valuable employee that your dependents' healthcare needs we will pay for as part of your compensation. So you could flip a couple houses in your C Corp, have $100,000 of profit, and pay mom's nursing home bill if she's your dependent, and pay for it out of that $100,000 and not pay taxes on that money under a medical expense reimbursement plan. And if you've got a child with autism or special needs that needs aggressive therapy, that's a way of doing it and not paying taxes on that money. And that money will go twice as far then. Because you've got another powerful feature that goes with that. This is one of the reasons I also love health savings accounts. Health savings account, you can't put as much money into it. So you only put like $5,000 to $6,000 a year into an HSA. Now whether you grow, it depends. But there's no limit on medical expense reimbursement plans, MRPs. You can do some pretty amazing things that way. All right, so that's a benefit of a C corporation. Now, if you don't have one of those special needs, if you don't have one of those extenuating circumstances, I'm not sure why you would have a C corporation. I'm just not sure why, okay? You're paying more in taxes, you're paying a lot more in record keeping and tax return preparation and accountant fees and lawyer docs and all that other stuff than if you had a sub S. All right, so this is the double taxation that I've been talking about. I've got it in words, I got ahead of my slides, okay? So now let's talk about what is a limited liability company. A limited liability company is also a separate legal entity formed for limiting the liability and asset protection purposes. And your code, it says that the exclusive remedy is a charging order. Now, I like Ohio, where our language is the sole and exclusive remedy. Our legislature put it in there so that the judges really knew what they meant. Okay? So, anyhow. The owners of an LLC are called members. The person who runs an LLC is called a manager. You can have more than one manager. The manager may be a member or may not be a member. It all depends on a lot of factors. LLCs are frequently used for holding real estate and other personal assets. the first really glimpse that America got into how the ultra-rich used LLCs is when one of Sam Walton's sons died in an ultralight plane crash. This was probably 12 years ago. One of the heirs to the Walmart fortune. And it was discovered through the process after he passed away that he owned all of his shares of Walmart inside of a Wyoming limited liability company. Now you're going to say, well, Wyoming? Why Wyoming? Do I need to use Wyoming? No, you don't. Why did he use Wyoming? Because 12 years ago, Wyoming was ahead of everybody else. Everybody else has now got caught up. Don't tell that to all the marketers that tell you that Nevada and Wyoming are the only places to be. You know, they got to sell you that to try and make some more money off of you, okay? Actually, Nevada and Wyoming scare me now because they want too much data.
Yeah.
Even though they don't make it necessarily public, they want too much data, and data can be hacked and stolen, and I just, you know, if you're paranoid, you don't want your data hacked and stolen. Okay, so LLCs are frequently used for holding real estate and other personal assets. Single member means one owner. A single member LLC can be taxed on one of two ways. It can be taxed on a flow-through basis, usually on a Schedule C. Schedule C is part of your personal income tax return. It's attached to your 1040. Now, I saw where this got really, really ugly for one of my clients. He got mad at me, didn't like the size of my bill, and went off and founded a single-member LLC on his own, named the company I Don't Like to Work, LLC. And then a year after he formed it, he managed to make $3 million in 1 year with I Don't Like to Work, LLC. I guess he worked, okay? And he did it as a single-member LLC, didn't do any special setup, so he had to file a Schedule C on his personal tax return with a $3 million gross sales number in the upper right-hand corner of his Schedule C. Now, you know what happened, right? He got audited. Anybody that makes that much money is obviously hiding something somewhere, so we're coming looking. Okay? And it got ugly. He got some tax liens filed against him, and it tied him up for a while, but he was a smart guy. He had some other really good help. He had a really smart accountant that we worked with a lot. And he got out of the mess, and when it got all said and done, after the IRS audit was over, he got a refund check with interest on it. So it was all good. But he could have avoided that if he would have set that single-member LLC up as a sub-S corporation. Had it taxed as a sub-S, it would have filed its own separate tax return, and that $3 million would have never shown up on his return, only the net profit, which was a lot more like $1.1 million, that was the net profit, would have shown up on his personal tax return. Much less risk of being audited, and so on. Okay? One of the other risks with a single-member LLC is there is a greater risk of mismanagement due to the single owner not following requisite business formalities. Let me give you an example. So you're out grocery shopping and you use your LLC's card to pay for groceries at Walmart. You have opened yourself up to that potential. Okay, if it's a repeated activity, you're going down the wrong path. One time is not necessarily enough to blow it, but don't do it. A lot of things I see people do, okay? You have to treat your LLCs as separate legal entities, paper people that are distinct from you, okay? I'm sitting here in front of you today as Jeff Watson, an attorney who owns Jeffrey S. Watson Law Firm Ltd. I'm not sitting here as the owner of Baltic Properties, Harbor Properties, Azaza Holdings, or any of the other entities that I have, which I'm not going to go through all of them, okay? I'm here on behalf of my law practice, okay? And so guess who paid for the plane ticket for me to come down here?
The law practice.
Guess who's paying for my hotel room tonight?
The law practice.
The law practice. Guess who's paying for my plane ticket to go home tomorrow?
The law practice.
The law practice. Guess whose workers' comp coverage may cover my need? The law practices. Okay? Because that was in the course and scope of my employment when I took that nasty tumble. All right, so property ownership. Should I ever own a property inside of a corporation? The answer is it depends on what you're going to do with that property. If you're going to own it for less than 365 days, own it inside of a corporation and resell it and you're fine. If you're going to own it more than 365 days, which is a year, do not ever, ever, ever put it inside of a corporation. I'm just now beginning business negotiations with a doctor in my hometown whose lawyer foolishly put his medical practice building inside of his corporation that owns his medical practice. I want to buy that building. And he knows he's got a tax trap just waiting to implode on him. And so I've already said to him, we're going to work with you and structure this deal the best way to minimize your taxes. And that was like refreshing blast of cool air on a hot day because it's like, oh, somebody gets it. My accountant's been yelling at me for 10 years about this. I don't know how to fix it, but this guy will when he buys the property from me. Okay? So does that mean I'm going to get a better deal for it?
Yes.
Can you say yes? Oh yeah, can you say yes?
Better.
Hey, you, right there. Right there. You start and say it once, say it again.
Yes.
Yes, you, sir. Yes. Awesome, I heard you this time. Awesome, I heard you. Okay. Thank you for letting me pick on you. Appreciate it. All right. Single member LLC versus multiple member LLC. Depends. It depends on a couple of things. What is your overall plan and strategy? If you're going to use a multiple member LLC, then you have a couple of choices you have to make pretty quickly. Are you going to have it taxed as a partnership, or are you going to have it taxed as a corporation? You've got to make that decision probably within, the IRS tells you got to make that decision within 90 days of forming the entity. I'm going to tell you got to make that decision within the first 360 days of forming that entity. You don't want to go beyond day 361, okay? You got to make it in that with less than a year. Okay, you got to know that, because a multiple member LLC is either going to be a partnership or it's going to be taxed as a corporation, one or the other. It's not going to be on your personal return. And our goal is to maximize privacy and asset protection without losing tax breaks. So we're going to, depending upon what we're doing. Okay, so limited liability companies are frequently chosen for business entity startups, and declares that one of the purposes of the company is to limit the liabilities of the owners of the company, and it's exactly what today's real estate investor needs. I've already told you that. So, here's an idea. If you want to take a picture of this, you can. I'll have some more slides up with more pictures on them. So we have a single member LLC electing sub-S tax status that owns 3 flipper properties, and it also runs a business maybe doing property management or consulting or coaching or lawn mowing or whatever, okay? I gotta just reposition myself. I'm sorry, folks. It gets a little... just on a side note, I have no idea how I'm going to get on that plane tomorrow morning. That's going to be a real treat. I'm not sure how I'm going to get out of bed tomorrow. Oh. God will get me through it. Okay, here we go. Do you know what a flipper is? A flipper is a house you're going to own for less than a year. A flipper is also a term used to describe somebody who's buying and quickly reselling houses. Okay? Sometimes wholesalers are flippers. I think wholesalers should be flippers because I think wholesalers should buy the house, take title to it, and then resell it if they want to stay out of trouble, if they want to be compliant. There, I got that. Brian, did you hear that? I got that promo in, man.
I heard it.
I got that plug in. There you are, brother. Thank you.
I heard it.
I got that in there. I got a phone call today about a guy in Kansas that is having the Kansas Real Estate Commission come after him on that very issue. Last week was a phone call from a guy in Florida. only a matter of time before people who are doing it wrong are gonna get in deep, deep kimchi, okay? It's not gonna be good. All right, so suppose you don't wanna do business all by yourself. Suppose you got a spouse, significant other, trusted friend, adult child, whatever. And you wanna say, okay, we're gonna do this business together. Well, first of all, I hope that there is either a strategic business reason for why you're together, or I hope that there is a strong familial reason why you're together. Okay? Parent, child, husband, wife, etc. Then you're going to have a multiple member LLC electing sub S tax status. And one of them can do the house flipping, and the other one can do the property management and the consulting and so on. And this is how, by the way, you can generate earned income to make your contributions to your Roth 401k or your Roth IRA. Got that plug in too, didn't I? See, I'm getting there. All right, so this is your plan for earned income. You see how the money flows. The money from the house deals goes up into the LLC. The money from the business activities goes up into the LLC. The LLC collects the money, pays its bills and operational expenses. The LLC then files an informational tax return, and the LLC distributes money to its member owners in the form of a profit distribution. And more importantly, the LLC pays a reasonable salary to the people that are working for the business. And quite often they're the same person or persons that are both the members, the managers, the owners, and the doers. They're wearing both the chief and the Indian hat. You know what I mean? Okay? They're both the quarterback and the center. They're both the pitcher and the catcher. Okay. Oh. So let's show this a little bit different. You've got the owner of record. And the owner of record is a single member LLC. And it is owned by a multiple member LLC. And that multiple member LLC is owned by you and or your partner, your spouse, your child, whatever, okay? And the ratio can be anything that you want. 97.3 to 50-50. Okay, anywhere on that scale. Okay? Does anybody know where the liability shields are? Where are the levels and liability shields that are in this arrangement? Does anybody want to tell me? I gave you a clue already.
To the right of the multi-member?
To the right of the multiple member, yes. Is that the only one, though? You read my mind. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Between ourselves and the partner?
So I'll just jump to slide. There it is, okay? Remember that single member LLC gives you a liability shield under Alabama law. And then that multiple member LLC gives you a second liability shield. So if you really screw something up because you kept using your single member LLC debit card to buy groceries at Walmart and to, pay whatever else you're doing, your online video poker addiction, I don't know. That is, so if that veil gets pierced, then you've got the next one, which is your multiple member LLC protecting you from ruin. Okay? Now, can we make this a little more complicated? Can we?
Please.
We can. But the question becomes, should we? And like I told you, this is good enough for 80 or so percent of the people that are out there. Okay? But we can take it a little more complicated, and I'll try and get there. Oh, there's a verse from the book of Proverbs that I tossed in there. Be sure to know the condition of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds, for riches do not endure forever, and a crown is not secure for all generations. Pay attention to what you own. Take care of it. So, here is a couple of different ideas. Now we're switching over. You notice what we've got up on the top of the screen? Does anybody see what we've got there? Passive income. So these are not flipper properties. These are rental properties. These are buy and hold. These are cash flow. These are get them free and clear, get the banks out of your life and hold them for a long time property. Okay? So, each of these single member LLCs own a house, and each of these single member LLCs are owned by a multiple member LLC, and that multiple member LLC is owned by you and your spouse or you and your partner. Okay? And we can go one more layer of complexity. We can take those investment properties and we can have them held by a title holding trust where you are not the trustee, but your single member LLC is the owner of the trust, and that single member LLC is owned by the multiple member LLC that you and your spouse own. Okay? So by now I know I have blown past everybody. Okay? Because it happens all the time. That's when you can take a picture of this. Okay. So, pop quiz. Anybody want to tell me where the liability shields are?
Between the MM.
Not where all the arrows are, but where most of them are, yes. Yeah.
Not where they need to be.
Pardon me?
It's not where it needs to be.
Oh, it is where it needs to
No
be.
protection between you and your spouse.
I will highly recommend two books by Dr. Henry Cloud. One is called Safe People, and the other one is called Boundaries.
Get that man a divorce attorney.
All right, so how much better is it to get wisdom than gold than to get insight rather than silver? Now we're going to change gears here, okay? I've got to try and wiggle around a little bit. I'm just going crazy sitting here. How many of you have ever heard of the concept called equity stripping? A few of you. Probably you guys are what I call asset protection junkies. And I'm going to go on a... Brian, how are we doing on time?
We're kind of pushing up against it.
Okay, I'll speed this up. I'll speed this up. Okay.
But it's so great, right?
If I was... Remember at the beginning I made an agreement with them that if they didn't like it, the law of motion, they could get up and leave? I've not seen too many people leave.
That's right.
Okay, so we're going to talk about equity stripping and go from there, and I'll avoid my riff on asset protection junkies. Okay. We all judge people on appearances, don't we? Even though we've often heard the phrase, big hat, no cattle, we still think that people who look rich are rich, and that means we often think that people who look poor are poor. I got news for you, that ain't always the case. Okay? So, quick question. Does this couple look collectible?
Yep.
Yeah, they do. Now, does this couple look collectible?
Nope.
They don't, do they? I mean, you know, they enjoy... Eeyore is their animal spirit, okay? The world is turned against them and it's never going to get right, and they're just an Eeyore, okay? You know, out of Winnie the Pooh, in case anybody's wondering. All right, so on the record, looking uncollectible and over-leveraged in debt. What does this do for you? It may make you look like less of a target. Is that a good thing?
Yes.
It can be a very good thing. Okay? So equity stripping strategies. The first one is get a line of credit from a local bank that you do not draw upon it, but you have the open-ended mortgage recorded against your properties, making it look like you owe $100,000 on it, even though you've not used a dime of the line of credit. I lost you, didn't I? Okay. So when a bank lends you money, they make you sign 3 pieces of paper. A note, a mortgage or deed of trust, and a personal guarantee. Now, in a consumer line of credit, they may not get a personal guarantee out of you. They may feel that the note language is enough because of the way the owner's terms they stick in the note. So a local bank may give you a line of credit, a home equity line of credit. They love to sell those products to you, to just slap another chain on you, to bind you to making, giving them money for the rest of your life, okay? But if you can use a line of credit that you put in place, that you immediately cut up the card, you burn the checks, and you don't ever use the money, but there's a deed of trust or a mortgage recorded on public record that says that the bank has a lien of $100,000 on that house. So does it look like you have any equity in it? Maybe not. The only way they'll ever find out is they've got to sue you. 3 years later, they got to win, and then they got to go into post-judgment collection practices, which could be 5 years after you waffled the trial lawyer in the crosswalk. So, trophy wife number 3, she may not own a white, 5 years. You never know, okay? So the second equity stripping technique, one that I prefer, is to find a friendly private lender who makes an actual loan, i.e. you can document the wire, you can document the canceled check, where the loan is made, you sign the note, you sign the mortgage, you sign the deed of trust, you sign the personal guarantee, and a week later you pay it all back with a little bit of interest. 7 days of interest. And you get back the promissory note marked canceled, paid in full. You get back the deed of trust or the release and satisfaction of the deed of trust or mortgage, and it's executed and ready to go. And you take that note and that deed of trust and you lock it in a fireproof vault. You do not go record it. Because you want the public record to still show that you owe the money. Even though you've got proof in writing that it's been paid back. Okay? You hold the release and satisfaction of that deed of trust, of that mortgage, of that deed to secure debt, whatever you guys use in this state, and you hold that in your files, in your fireproof box. Okay? Where your family knows to find it if something happens to you. So, the money lender lends money, the house owner gives back the note and the mortgage or the note and the deed of trust, and we use this to hide our real assets because it makes it look like we have no equity. We have stripped away the equity. Remember back we had this former chairman of the Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan, that talked about people were using their home equity loans of credit like ATMs right before the bubble blew up. By the way, is there anybody in this room that was investing in real estate 2 market crashes ago? Okay, was there anybody investing in real estate 1 market crash ago? Okay, let me give you a piece of advice. Fasten your seat belts. This next crash is going to be more violent than the last one. When is it going to be? I don't know. What's going to trigger it? I'm not sure. But when it happens, look out. And I'm going to tell you the best way to be is under-leveraged, cash on hand, and be ready to go shopping, buying properties from investors that borrowed too much money. All right. I don't have time for this. I'm going to skip over this, Brian. I'm just going to come down. This is my next to last slide. So you're going to say, well, hey, Jeff, it's pretty cool. Even though you couldn't stand up, even though you couldn't move around, pretty cool. We like what you're doing. I do a blog called Watson Invested, where our goal is helping people build wealth with real estate. You can go to my blog. You can sign up for my e-newsletter. I generally send 1 or 2 out a week. On a good week, they go out on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On a rough week, they might go out once. This week is really bad because of how crazy my schedule is. I haven't been able to get one out yet. You can sign up for that. Now, some of you are going to say, well, you know, Jeff, that's pretty cool, but I'm a Facebook kind of person, Jeff. So you can follow me on Facebook. I've got Jeff Watson Invested on Facebook. It's a fan page. There's no limit to how many people can follow me there. My other page is maxed out, been maxed out for a while. You can follow me there, and you can stay in touch, get more information that I make available, and you can go from there. Brian, that's about all I got, man. I normally have got a much snazzier way of getting off stage because they taught me a long time ago, always know how to get on and always know how to get away. And I'm trapped. Guys, give it up for Jeff Watson. Thank you very much. You are so kind.
So, I know you guys probably have dozens and dozens and dozens of questions. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to ask one question. Yeah, I have the platform. And I think it's really important. There are a lot of curious people in here, and we didn't get to touch on this one thing. I do want to ask you one question. Otherwise, you're going to hang out with us for a minute, right?
I got nowhere else to go. I'm dependent upon, I call Yvonne an angel. I'm dependent on her to get my briefcase, to get my suitcase. I'm dependent on you to get to my hotel.
Yeah.
So, dude, I got my phone.
Maybe I'll go up to Ohio with you tomorrow. Make sure you get there safe.
That would almost be a good idea.
So I want to ask you one question, and I think it's a question that we talked about this before you even came here.
Yeah.
Kind of what route to go, because you can go in a lot of different routes. Was it good though? Yeah. Just some good stuff tonight. And by the way, when you go to his Facebook page, give him a rating, guys.
Yeah.
Seriously, that means so much. Just rate the page. When you guys do it for us, it means the world. You have no idea how much that means. So please do that. It takes you literally 10 seconds to do. So please do that for him.
Thank you.
Here's the question. You mentioned it in passing. Wholesaling, the regulations that are coming down. You in the very beginning, you even mentioned
Yeah.
that you're leading the charge to really crack down. And he's been on our podcast, and I asked him all these questions. If you wanted to get in real big depth with it, go back to our podcast. I think it came out in December or January. And he's got his own podcast, and he talks about it all the time. So definitely check that out as well. Give everybody just maybe 3 to 5 minutes. What's going on in wholesaling? What are you doing specifically? What are you seeing that, you mentioned that something's about to happen.
Okay.
What is it?
So, y'all realize the real estate market is hot, right?
Yeah.
And you realize that there are more buyers than there are available inventory. And so if a real estate agent doesn't get the deal for their buyer that they think they should have gotten, and there's anything that the other party did wrong, they're going to file a complaint against that party with their board of realtors or with their division of real estate. Ask me how I know. It's happened to a lot of my clients. Doesn't happen to me because I get them out of these jams. The second thing I want you to know is on a national level, there is a nationwide organization of real estate licensed law officials called ARELO. I am an adjunct member of that organization, which means I'm allowed to go to their meetings. I'm the only non-government employee in those meetings. Dude, there is no other real estate investor within 20 miles of those meetings. But I'm influencing their policy because the co-chair of the investigator committee that teaches investigation techniques and strategy to all of the investigators across America from all the different states, the co-chair is a friend of mine from the state of Ohio, and she plays for them the video I did in the state of Ohio with the Division of Real Estate about the legality of wholesaling. You can find that video on my blog, Watson Invested. Bottom line is this: if you own the house, you can market it any way you want to. Until you own the house, You can only market what you own. And that's the contract. So if you're a wholesaler looking to flip houses and you think that you're never going to take title to it, you're cruising for a bruising. You better be marketing just contracts and say in all of your advertising, contract for sale, and describe the characteristics but not the picture of the house. And when somebody wants to follow up, then you can get into the details. But any publicly distributed thing, please be careful to say only what you own. The second thing is, if you want your deals to blow up, if you want your deals to have problems, if you want people to complain about how much money you make, wholesaling, then you will do assignments, and only assignments. And then you will be living a false life, because you'll be advertising, I buy houses cash, I close quickly, and you never bought a house. And, I mean, that's just like giving a RICO violation to the feds. I don't know why you'd do that. So, if you want to control your deals, if you want to make more money, and you want people to not know how quickly you're making money and how much money you're making, you will double close on your stuff. You will buy it, take title to it. I don't care if you take title to it for 12 minutes, 12 hours, or 12 days, but title will vest in your name. And a deed will go on record showing that you did what you said you do. You say, I buy houses, I pay cash, I close quickly, and guess what? You did. It bought houses. And then it resold them. And how quickly it did doesn't matter. Okay? It's still going to all get taxed at the same rate. Did I cover it fast enough for you?
Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff.